Hello everyone, welcome to another video in the series Learn Python with Suchi. In our previous videos, we've learned about print statement, we've learned variables and data types, simple arithmetic operators. In this video, we're going to put all those together and do some simple mathematical calculations. But before we do that, I wanted to show a couple of features in REPL that you can take advantage of, and I want to show some not to-dos in Python, and then we're going to proceed to the mathematical expressions. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So this is where we left off in our previous video. So the first feature I want to show you in REPL is what's called forking. So when I go to my REPLs, right now it shows that I have two REPLs, the hello world in our first video and the variables and data types in our second video. So if I wanted to create another REPL, I could go to create and then choose Python and do all the steps that I've done in my previous video. Or if I just want to copy another REPL, including the code, including every single file in that REPL, then I can simply click on those three dots and then I can say fork. So when I do that, and I can rename it to what we are going to do today is mathematical expressions or formulas, whatever you want to call it. And then when I fork the REPL, it pretty much takes over everything from the previous REPL and creates a duplicate of that. So you don't have to type anything extra. So this is one of the features I like the most when I teach my classes. I let my students fork my REPL so they don't have to lay in all the groundwork. They can pick up from where I left off. So this was our previous REPL where we ended. The second thing I wanted to show in REPL is that you could use a dark theme. In here, my editor is white and I have black letters and color coded based on what they are, or I can choose a dark theme where my editor is dark and then I have color coded variables and strings and so on and so forth. So it is your choice, whatever works for you. I like the dark theme better because I can see the color coding so much more prominently here, that numbers are yellow, greenish, and strings are orange, and booleans are color coded in blue, and the variable names are all white, and comments are dark green. So I like this kind of theme, but you choose whichever you want to. I'll be using this theme going forward. So remember all our data types from our previous videos. And we've done some addition, we've done multiplication, and I left subtraction and division for you to do it as an exercise. And I hope you've done it and played with the data types and figured out how to work with them. So there are a couple of pitfalls here in Python that people usually do. I've seen my students do is they want to define a Boolean, and what they end up doing is thinking that, hey, I defined K to be a Boolean. But remember, the moment you start a single quote or a double quote, Python treats it as a string. It doesn't matter that you are using the word true, which actually is a Boolean in Python. Python doesn't interpret as a Boolean, it thinks that is a string. Similarly, inside the quotes, even if you define 54, which technically is an integer, it's a numeric value, Python still treats it as a string. Same story with a float. If you want to define 54.67, if you wrap it inside quotes, anything, no matter what it is, Python is going to think of it as a string. So that is one big pitfall. Another one is, have you seen this line space? There's a blank line here that I've left for spacing just for funsies, and Python didn't mind that at all. So if I run this code right now, I don't have a print statement, so it's not really going to print anything, but it's still going to execute without any errors. But what happens if I put a character space, and the moment I do that, Python REPL creates an underline? That means there's something wrong. So Python is okay with blanks and blank lines, but it's definitely not okay with character spaces before the lines because they designate something very specific, and we will see that in our next upcoming videos as we learn Python. So those are things to watch for. And another thing I wanted to mention was we said all of these are variables, right? So what is a variable? A variable is something that can vary, that can change over a period of time. So while I define hello is equal to 5 here, it doesn't mean I can change my mind and say, hey, hello is not 5 anymore. Now I want to assign it to 6. Or I can say hello is 5 plus 2. Remember, we talked about variables not only containing values, they can also contain expression, the value of an expression. So this is the mathematical expression. So if I try to print hello at this point, it'll print 7. So variables are containers that can change values over a period of the program's execution. So those are the things I wanted to mention before we start moving on to mathematical expressions. So we know data types, we know our numbers, we know our operators. So how can we put those two together and do some formulas? So I was born in India and I came to the United States a long time ago as a grad student. And the first few things that I had to do, or I had so much struggle adapting to, was converting temperatures. The temperature in India is measured in centigrade, and here it is Fahrenheit in the US. And I always struggle. And somebody told me, "Oh, the temperature's in 30s." I would always have to go back and calculate how much does it actually translate to in centigrade, because my mind couldn't fathom. And another was struggle was with converting the currency. Here in the US it's dollars, India it's rupees. So I know the rupees, and so I have to convert everything. So when somebody says, "Oh, this is $2," I would always have to do a mental calculation. Okay, $2 is equal to how many rupees? Oh my gosh, that is too expensive, because I couldn't understand in context with dollars. So I think I want to start with those two today, and then I'll give you some for exercise to see how you would fare with mathematical formulas. So the first one, like I said, would be Fahrenheit, if I can spell it right, Fahrenheit. No, I think Fahrenheit to Celsius. It really doesn't matter because this is a comment. Anything you put a hash symbol in front of it becomes a comment. Python doesn't care. If there's a spelling mistake, I really don't have a problem. So that's the first thing we're going to do. And the second thing we're going to calculate is dollars to rupees. So Fahrenheit to Celsius. First, like I said, as a human being, we have to know how to solve a problem first before we can teach a computer how to do it. So Fahrenheit to Celsius computation, if you don't know it, you can Google for it. So I don't know if you can see that tab or not, so I'm not going to do that. But the way I would do is, let me put it in a comment, okay? So Fahrenheit temperature minus 32, and then the whole thing is divided by 1.8. That was the formula that I would always use to convert it to Celsius. So taking that formula, first I would need Fahrenheit. So if it's 80 degree Fahrenheit, okay, and this really doesn't matter. You can name your variable whatever you want, preferably something descriptive, but even if you simply said F, Python would be okay with it. So Celsius is equal to Fahrenheit temperature, and Python REPL will help you out a little bit. It'll give you suggestions, and I'm just gonna tab and then it'll fill in all that so I don't have to type it all out. So that's one good thing you can do with REPL. So Fahrenheit temperature minus 32, and now this whole thing divided by 1.8 gives me Celsius. So if I try to print Celsius, it'll give me the value. So at this point, if it's 80 degrees in the United States, what would we call it in India would be 26.66. So that is the simplest conversion. And if you have taken your math classes, you know how operator precedence goes. You parentheses first, and exponential seconds, and multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So there's a specific order to which mathematical operations happen. Same rules apply here in Python too. So because I put this entire thing in parentheses, I forced Python to calculate this value first and then do the division. If I didn't do that, then Python would first try to divide 32 with 1.8 and then do the subtraction, and that would be really, really wrong. So that is not accurate. So all the rules for mathematical calculations that you have learned in algebra still apply here in Python. So I'm not going to reteach what you already know. Next is a conversion for dollars to rupees. Well, for that, I would need to know how many dollars. Say if I had $10, how much would that be in rupees? I would probably have to look at the exchange rate for today, which I don't know. Dollars to rupees today. And then that's 82.73 rupees. So equal to dollars times 82. I don't remember what that was. Ugh. Okay, I'm just going to say 82.67. And then I'll print the rupees. As long as I have blank lines, it's okay. I'll try to concise it. And then when I run it, it prints that number of rupees, and I can keep changing. Hey, if I had $25, how much would the rupees value be? I'm going to comment these out, control / comments everything out. And then for $25, I have 2,066 rupees. So the exercise for you is to calculate the opposite. If I give you Celsius, how can you calculate Fahrenheit value? You got to look up the formula on Google and then put it in your code. I will give you one more. How to convert miles to kilometers, because that's another arithmetic I had so much trouble with, because in India we always use kilometers to measure distance, and here when I came to the US everything was in miles, so it was a hard problem for me. So try to assign your own values to your miles and convert them and try to print the kilometer values. Okay, that is it for today's video. Wanted to keep it as short as possible so you'll have more time to practice than to just watch me talk.